world returns to Thistle Moorwren not as a sudden jolt, but as a slow, soft dilution of a dream. She is floating in a library made of mist, where the shelves are woven from moonbeams, and the books have pages of silent, falling snow. A cat is there with her, a sleek, silver creature with eyes the color of polished shillings. It doesn't meow. It doesn't need to. It simply looks at her, and in its gaze, she understands entire volumes of forgotten lore, the answers to questions she hasn't yet thought to ask. The cat blinks, a slow, deliberate motion, and with each blink, a new constellation appears in the misty air above them, the stars forming unfamiliar patterns that hum with a quiet, ancient magic. She reaches for her quill, desperate to capture the fleeting wisdom, but her fingers close on empty air. The cat gives one last, knowing look, and then dissolves, not into nothingness, but into the fog itself, leaving only the memory of its silver eyes behind. Thistle's own eyes flutter open. For a moment, the dream clings to her, the scent of moonlight and old paper still sharp in her senses. But it fades, replaced by the familiar reality of the Ravenclaw dormitory. The air is cool and still. The only sounds are the gentle, rhythmic breathing of her roommates and the distant, mournful hoot of an owl returning late to the owlery. She is in her own bed, the heavy velvet curtains drawn tight, creating a small, private world of warmth and darkness. But something is different. A soft, pearlescent light is seeping through the gaps in the curtains. A diffuse, shadowless glow that is not the usual sharp gold of a Hogwarts sunrise. Pushing aside the heavy blue fabric, she sees why. The world outside the tall, arched window of Ravenclaw Tower has vanished. In its place is a vast, silent, and impenetrable bank of fog. A thick, white sea that presses right up against the glass. The familiar view of the Black Lake, the forbidden forest, and the distant, rolling hills is gone, swallowed whole. The castle feels like an island, a single stone spire floating in a cloud. It's beautiful. Other students might find the view unsettling, the sudden isolation unnerving. But for Thistle, a girl who finds comfort in quiet corners and unanswered questions, the fog is a kind of magic in itself. It's a clean page, a whispered secret, a world of possibilities hidden just beyond sight. It makes the castle feel smaller, cozier, more intimate. She slips out of bed, her bare feet silent on the cold stone floor. Her mind is still buzzing with the strange, vivid clarity of her dream. The silver cat, the constellations, the feeling of understanding everything and nothing all at once. She moves to her small, tidy desk, where her school things are arranged with a quiet precision that belies the chaotic nature of her thoughts. Her wand lies next to a neat stack of parchment, and beside that, her most prized possession, a leather-bound notebook and a perpetually sharp, self-inking quill. This notebook is not for her schoolwork. It is not for essays on the goblin rebellions, or notes on the proper incantation for a levitation charm. This is her book of questions. It is filled with the things that the textbooks leave out, the mysteries that linger in the corners of every lesson. Why do ghosts feel a chill, but not the warmth of a fire? If a boggart faces a boggart, what does it become? Where do the house elves go when they grow old? The pages are a testament to her insatiable, quiet curiosity, a map of her own wonderings. She opens it to a fresh page. The self-inking quill hovers in her hand, waiting. She doesn't write a question this time. Instead, she begins to sketch, her hand moving with a strange, dreamlike certainty. She draws the cat first, its sleek, otherworldly form, its long, elegant tail curved like a question mark. She spends the most time on its eyes, trying to capture their strange, silvery depth, the unnerving intelligence that seemed to shine from them. Beneath the sketch, she writes, "A dream of a silver-eyed cat. It didn't speak, but I understood it. It showed me stars I have never seen." She pauses, the quill hovering. The memory is so vivid, so real, that calling it just a dream feels like a betrayal. It felt more like a visit. A rustle from a nearby bed tells her that her roommates are beginning to stir. The quiet, magical intimacy of the morning is about to be broken by the usual rush of finding lost socks and misplaced homework. Thistle closes her notebook, the ink already dry. The secret of the silver cat safely tucked away within its pages. As she gets dressed, pulling on her own warm socks and familiar school robes, the fog outside the window seems to press closer, its soft, white fingers clinging to the ancient stone of the tower. It muffles the world, creating a sense of peace, of being held in the castle's quiet embrace. she feels a strange sense of anticipation, a feeling that today will not be an ordinary day. The dream clings to her like the fog clings to the castle walls. A beautiful, unanswered question that has just been written on the first page of her day. She heads down the winding staircase from the dormitory, the dream of the cat's silver eyes still glittering at the edge of her thoughts, and makes her way towards the great hall for breakfast, ready for whatever puzzles the day might bring. After a breakfast of porridge and toast, where the fog seemed to press in even on the great hall's enchanted ceiling, Thistle finds herself drawn to the one place in the castle that feels as boundless as her own curiosity. The library, the vast, silent chamber, is her sanctuary, a place where thousands of questions have been asked and answered, all bound in leather and ink. On a foggy day like this, the library takes on a special kind of magic. The tall, arched windows, which usually stream bright sunlight onto the desks, are now just soft, gray rectangles of diffuse light, making the lamps on the tables glow with a warmer, more intimate golden light. The air smells of old paper, beeswax, and the faint, clean scent of rain-soaked stone from the castle walls. The silence is not empty. It's a rich, layered silence, filled with the soft rustle of turning pages, the distant scratching of quills, and the occasional, sleepy sigh of a book that has been returned to its shelf after a long journey. Thistle's mission is, at first, a logical one. Her dream was vivid. Yes, but dreams are merely the mind's way of sorting through the day's information. She decides to research symbolic dream interpretation, a perfectly respectable, if slightly woolly, branch of divination. She heads for the appropriate section, her footsteps silent on the thick, patterned rug that muffles all sound. She runs her fingers along the spines of the books. The Dream Oracle, Unfogging the Future, a compendium of somnial symbolism. She pulls out a heavy, dust-covered tome titled Nocturnal Narratives, an analysis of magical dreamscapes. It feels like the most scholarly, least hysterical option. She finds an empty carrel in a quiet corner, the wooden partitions offering a welcome sense of privacy. She settles in, the warm glow of the lamp creating a small bubble of light in the gray afternoon. She opens the book and begins to read. For an hour, she loses herself in the text, learning about the significance of falling dreams, usually related to a loss of control in transfiguration. Flying dreams, often linked to success in charms. and the recurring dream of being unprepared for an exam, a universal affliction with no magical cure. It's all very interesting, in a clinical, academic way, but none of it resonates with the feeling of her dream. There is no chapter for when a dream feels more like a memory, no entry for when a cat with silver eyes teaches you astronomy. A sense of mild disappointment settles over her. Perhaps it was just a strange dream, a random firing of synapses. She closes the heavy book with a soft thump and prepares to move on to her arithmancy homework. As she reaches for her bag, a soft, sliding sound from the bookshelves behind her makes her freeze. It is followed by a gentle whump, the sound of a book landing softly on the carpeted floor. Thistle turns. The library is quiet. Madame Pince is several aisles away, her back turned as she meticulously polishes a book spine. No other students are nearby. Yet, there on the floor, lying open as if offered up for her inspection, is a small, slim volume bound in faded gray leather. It has clearly fallen from a high shelf, a place where books can sit undisturbed for decades. Her heart gives a little flutter of a beat. Coincidence? Her logical mind insists. Old bindings give way. Gravity does the rest. But her curiosity, that ever-present tug, urges her to her feet. She pads over to the fallen book and kneels down. It's not a book on dreams. The title, embossed in tarnished silver leaf, reads, Reflections and Refractions, a study of enchanted mirrors and scrying glasses. It's a subject she knows little about. The book has fallen open to a chapter on sympathetic surfaces, detailing how certain magically treated mirrors can briefly retain echoes of strong emotions or events that have occurred before them. It's the margin, however, that catches her eye. There, next to a complex diagram of a silver-backed scrying glass, someone has scribbled a note in a faint, spidery hand. The ink is faded, a pale sepia color that suggests it was written a very, very long time ago. It's not a note on the text. It's a riddle. I have no voice, but show you all things. I have no eyes, but my gaze, it stings. I tell the truth, but am filled with lies. What am I beneath the raven skies? Thistle reads it once, then twice. A cold tingle, like a drop of icy water, trickles down her spine. It's a simple riddle. On the surface, the answer is obviously a mirror. But the last line, beneath the raven skies, that makes it specific. It feels personal. It feels like a message. Her hand instinctively goes to the pocket of her robes, where her small notebook is tucked away. She pulls it out, along with her self-inking quill, and carefully copies the riddle onto the page directly beneath her sketch of the silver-eyed cat. She looks at the two entries side by side. The drawing of the otherworldly cat, born from a dream of mist and stars, and the riddle, found by impossible chance. Speaking of mirrors and truth, her rational mind is struggling, fighting for purchase. It is a coincidence. A book fell. A student, long ago, scribbled a riddle in its margin. It means nothing. But her intuition, the quieter, more insistent voice that fills her book of questions, whispers something else. It whispers that the fog outside and the mist in her dream are connected, that the silver in the cat's eyes and the silver on the book's cover are part of the same thread, that a question has been asked, not by her, but of her. She gently closes the fallen book, and, with a sense of reverence she can't explain, she uses her wand to levitate it back to the high, dusty shelf from whence it came. It slides back into its place, disappearing into the shadows, its secret delivered. As Thistle returns to her carrel, she doesn't open her arithmancy textbook. She simply stares at the fresh ink in her notebook, at the two clues sitting side by side. The day is no longer just foggy and mysterious. It now has a direction, a purpose, and she has the distinct, unnerving feeling that she is being watched, not by any person in the library, but by a pair of unseen, silver eyes. The riddle from the library book buzzes in Thistle's mind for the rest of the afternoon. A low, persistent hum beneath the surface of her thoughts. It follows her through her charms lesson, where her levitation charm is unusually wobbly, and through her herbology class, where she nearly repots a venomous tentacula into a pot meant for a fanged geranium. The words circle in her head, refusing to be dismissed as mere coincidence. I tell the truth, but am filled with lies. It's the paradox that snags her Ravenclaw mind, the elegant contradiction that feels so much more significant than a simple schoolyard puzzle, deciding she needs to clear her head before arithmancy. She takes a different route back to the tower. Instead of the wide, bustling main staircase, she opts for a narrow, winding set of stairs on the 5th floor that she knows is rarely used. It leads through a long, quiet corridor that runs along the western side of the castle. It's a forgotten sort of place, dusty and dim, lined with portraits of stern, long-forgotten headmasters who snore softly in their frames. The corridor is notable for one peculiar feature. One of its walls is covered, from floor to ceiling, with old, speckled mirrors of all shapes and sizes. Round ones, square ones, tall, thin ones that stretch your reflection into a comical caricature. Thistle has always assumed they were for some long-abandoned dueling club or deportment class, relics of a bygone era. Today, the mirrors feel different. The fog still presses against the tall windows at the end of the corridor, and the diffuse gray light it casts is captured and reflected by the dozens of glass surfaces, creating a disorienting, watery-looking space. As she walks, her own reflection walks with her, a silent, blue-robed army of thistles stepping in unison from one mirror to the next. She keeps her eyes forward, the riddle still turning over in her mind. It's a flicker of movement in her peripheral vision that makes her stop. A flash of silver. She turns her head to the left, looking at a large, oval mirror with a tarnished silver frame. Its surface is clouded with age, speckled with small, dark spots like freckles on old skin. And sitting there, in the reflection of the dusty corridor, is the cat. Her heart doesn't just flutter. It stops. It is, without a single shred of doubt, the cat from her dream. Its fur is the color of moonlight on water, its form sleek and impossibly graceful. It sits perfectly still, its long tail wrapped neatly around its paws, and it is staring directly at her reflection. And its eyes, they are the exact same shade of polished silver, intelligent and unnervingly calm. The world seems to fall away. The dusty corridor, the snoring portraits, the very air in her lungs, it all vanishes. There is only the mirror and the impossible creature sitting within it. The cat is not a reflection of anything in the real corridor. It exists only in the glass, a silver ghost in a world behind the mirror. For a long, silent moment, she and the reflected cat simply look at each other. Her mind, the logical, evidence-based part of her, is scrambling, trying to make sense of what she is seeing. It's a trick of the light. It's a complex illusion charm, left over from some long-ago prank. It's a boggart, somehow escaped from a locked chest, taking the form of her subconscious thoughts. But none of those explanations feel right. Her intuition, the part of her that writes in the book of questions, knows the truth. This is real. This is happening. Slowly, deliberately, the cat in the mirror blinks. Once, it's the same slow, meaningful blink from her dream, a gesture that feels less like a reflex and more like a salutation. Then, with a courage she didn't know she possessed, Thistle turns around. She spins on her heel to face the spot in the real corridor where the cat should be. There is nothing there, only the dusty stone floor, the opposite wall of snoring portraits, and the empty, silent air. Her heart, which had stopped, now begins to hammer against her ribs, a frantic, terrified rhythm. She whips her head back to the mirror. The cat is gone. The mirror now shows only the empty corridor, a perfect, truthful reflection of the space behind her. She takes a shaky step closer to the speckled mirror, her own wide-eyed, pale-faced reflection moving to meet her. She reaches out a trembling hand and touches the glass. It is cold, solid, just an ordinary, old mirror. There is no shimmer of magic, no residual warmth from the impossible creature it just held. She presses her ear to its surface, listening, but there is only silence. She looks at her reflection again, then quickly turns to look over her shoulder, then back to the mirror, half expecting the cat to reappear. But there is nothing. It's as if it was never there at all. But it was. She knows it was. The image is seared into her memory. The silver fur, the intelligent gaze, the impossible presence. It was not a reflection. It was a window, and she had been seen. She stands there for a long time, her hand still pressed against the cold glass, her mind a whirlwind of fear and wonder. The dream, the riddle, the cat. They are not separate events. They are chapters in the same story. A story that is unfolding around her, pulling her deeper into a mystery she doesn't understand. The fog outside has begun to thin, but the fog in her own mind has only thickened. She is no longer just a curious girl with a notebook. She is a participant. And as she finally pulls her hand away from the mirror and continues down the corridor, she feels, with a chilling certainty, that the cat is still watching her, its silver eyes following her from a place she cannot see. Thistle walks into her arithmancy class, feeling as though she is moving through water. Her thoughts are slow, her limbs heavy. The chilling encounter in the corridor of mirrors has left a strange residue on her soul. a mixture of fear and an electric, thrilling curiosity. The familiar, ordered world of numbers and charts, a subject she usually loves for its cool logic and predictable patterns, seems like a poor, flimsy shield against the profound, illogical magic she has just witnessed. She takes her usual seat by the window, but the view is no longer a comforting blanket of fog. It's a gray, empty space that reminds her of the void behind the mirror. Professor Septima Vector is already at the front of the classroom, a tall, imposing witch whose sharp intellect is as legendary as her notoriously difficult exams. She radiates an aura of crisp, no-nonsense authority. Today's lesson is on the numerological significance of prime numbers in defensive enchantments, a topic Thistle would normally find fascinating. She unrolls her parchment, dips her quill in ink, and tries to focus on the complex equations Professor Vector is chalking onto the blackboard. But her mind keeps drifting. The numbers on the board seem to blur, the chalk lines momentarily arranging themselves into the sweep of a silver cat's tail. The rhythmic tapping of Professor Vector's chalk sounds like the soft, impossible footfalls of the cat in the corridor. She shakes her head, trying to clear it, and forces herself to begin the assigned calculations. The task is to chart the probable decay rate of a shield charm based on the prime number sequence of its core incantation. It's complex, methodical work, the kind Thistle usually excels at. She begins to write, her quill scratching across the parchment. Let 7 be the core emotional integer, and 13 the prime modifier for deflection. The numbers flow from her quill, but they don't feel like her own. They feel guided. As she works through the equation, she notices something strange. The results are not what she expects. They are elegant, yes, but they don't align with the principles Professor Vector has just outlined. Confused, she scratches out the line and begins again. This time, she pays closer attention. As she calculates, she watches the ink from her quill settle on the page, and she sees it. For a fraction of a second, the number 9 she has just written shimmers, its tail unfurling and recurling into a perfect 6. A moment later, a 3 she is about to write seems to resist her quill, forcing her hand to instead form a graceful 8. The numbers are changing, rearranging themselves on the page, as if guided by an unseen hand. Her hand, but not her mind. Panic begins to prickle at the back of her neck. She grips her quill tighter, trying to force the numbers to obey, to conform to the logical progression of the equation. But the more she fights it, the more fluid the numbers become. They morph and dance, leaving faint, ghostly trails of ink in their wake. They are no longer just numbers. They are symbols, and they are trying to tell her something. The final result of her long, complex calculation is not a single, neat probability factor. It is a sequence of 3 distinct numbers sitting starkly at the bottom of her parchment. 12, 7, 1. They mean nothing in the context of the arithmancy problem. They are a complete non sequitur, a baffling, nonsensical answer. She stares at them, her heart pounding. This is not her work. This is an intrusion, a message sent through the medium of her own calculations. She looks around the classroom. No one else seems to have noticed anything amiss. Her classmates are diligently scratching away at their own parchments, their faces furrowed in concentration. Then, she feels a presence beside her. She looks up to see Professor Vector standing by her desk, her sharp eyes not on Thistle, but on the parchment in front of her. Thistle's blood runs cold. She expects to be reprimanded, to be accused of daydreaming or making a mockery of the assignment. She quickly tries to cover the strange sequence of numbers with her hand. "Don't bother," Professor Vector says, her voice quiet and calm, yet carrying an immense weight. She doesn't sound angry. She sounds interested. She looks at the numbers, 12, 7, 1, and a flicker of something unreadable passes through her eyes. It's not surprise. It's recognition. Thistle's mouth is dry. "Professor, I don't know what happened," she stammers. "The numbers, they just..." Professor Vector raises a hand, silencing her. She taps a long, elegant finger on the anomalous result. "Arithmancy, Miss Moorwren," she says, her voice a low murmur that only Thistle can hear, "is the study of the magic of numbers. We teach you the rules, the structures, the known properties. We teach you how to ask questions of the universe using the language of mathematics." She pauses, her gaze still fixed on the parchment. "But what we often neglect to mention is that sometimes, if the question is important enough, the universe asks you back." She straightens up, her expression once again becoming the stern, impassive mask of a professor. She looks at Thistle, and for a fleeting moment, Thistle sees the same kind of knowing intelligence she saw in the silver cat's eyes. The standard answer for this equation is 2.74 recurring, Professor Vector says, her voice returning to its normal, crisp volume. However, I shall be interested to see the methodology that led you to this highly irregular result. Complete your charts. I will review them later. And with that, she sweeps away, continuing her patrol of the classroom as if nothing has happened. Thistle is left staring at her parchment, her mind reeling. The universe asks you back. Professor Vector hadn't dismissed it. She had, in her own cryptic, academic way, validated it. She knew. She understood that some magic was not about rules and equations, but about mysteries that reached out and chose you. The fear that had been coiling in Thistle's stomach begins to transform into something else. A sense of purpose, a sense of awe. She is no longer just a girl who had a strange dream. She is a girl who has been asked a question by the universe. She carefully circles the numbers on her parchment. 12, 7, 1. Another clue. Another piece of a puzzle she is only just beginning to comprehend. The cat, the riddle, the numbers, they are all connected. And Thistle has the distinct feeling that she is running out of time to find the answer. Thistle practically flees from the arithmancy classroom when the bell finally rings, her head buzzing with Professor Vector's cryptic words and the impossible numbers still glowing faintly on her parchment. She feels a desperate need for the comfort of her own space, for the familiar, intellectual hum of the Ravenclaw common room. She needs to sit, to think, to try and piece together the fragments of this strange, unfolding day. The cat, the riddle, the numbers. It feels like she's holding 3 mismatched pieces from 3 different jigsaw puzzles. She murmurs the answer to the eagle-headed knocker. What has a neck without a head, and a body without legs? A bottle. And the door swings open to reveal the familiar, circular room. The air is warm and smells of old books and crackling firewood. A few students are scattered around, some engaged in a quiet game of wizard's chess, others with their heads buried in thick, leather-bound tomes. The gentle, studious atmosphere is a balm to her frayed nerves. She finds a comfortable armchair in a secluded alcove, curls up in it, and pulls her own notebook from her bag. She opens it to the page where she sketched the silver cat. She adds the new information, her self-inking quill scratching quickly across the page. The cat appeared in a mirror on the 5th floor. It was not a reflection. It blinked at me, then vanished. Below that, she writes the riddle from the library book, and beside it, the numbers from her arithmancy chart: 12, 7, 1. She stares at the collection of clues, a strange tingle of excitement mixing with her fear. It's a real mystery, her very own entry in her book of questions. But this time, she is not just the one asking. She tries to focus, to apply logic. The riddle points to a mirror in Ravenclaw Tower, beneath the raven skies. But which one? There are dozens. The numbers, are they a code? A date? A location? A sequence for a spell? The possibilities branch out in her mind like a complex arithmancy chart, each path leading to more questions. Her gaze drifts around the common room, looking for a distraction, a moment of normality to anchor her thoughts. Her eyes land on a small, leather-bound journal lying abandoned on a nearby writing desk. It's not hers. She recognizes it as belonging to Marietta Edgecombe, a girl in the year above her. Marietta is known for being slightly flighty and prone to gossip, not the type to be involved in deep, ancient mysteries. The journal is open, a page of elegant, looping script left unfinished, as if Marietta was called away in a hurry. Thistle knows it's wrong to pry. It's a violation of privacy, but a powerful, irresistible curiosity. The same curiosity that made her peek through the door of the Department of Mysteries, that made her follow the riddle in the book, pulls her from her chair. She tells herself she is just going to close it, to be helpful. She walks over to the desk, her footsteps silent. She reaches out a hand to shut the journal, but her eyes betray her. She can't help but glance at the open page. Most of it is a breathless account of the latest school gossip, detailing who was seen holding hands with whom near the greenhouses. Thistle is about to turn away, a small smile on her face at the familiar drama, when a single paragraph at the bottom of the page catches her eye. Her blood runs cold. The elegant, looping handwriting describes, in perfect, word-for-word detail, the dream she had that morning. Had the strangest dream last night. The journal reads, I was in a library made of fog and mist, and there was this incredible silver cat with the most amazing eyes. It was the oddest thing. It didn't meow or anything, but it blinked. And every time it blinked, I saw these strange constellations in the air. I had the feeling it was trying to tell me something terribly important. But I can't for the life of me remember what it was. Woke up feeling like I'd forgotten something vital. Probably just that dodgy treacle tart I had after dinner. Thistle stands frozen, her hand hovering over the open book. Her heart is pounding so loudly she's sure the whole common room can hear it. It's impossible. It's absolutely, utterly impossible. It is one thing to have a strange dream. It is another thing entirely for someone else to have had the exact same, uniquely bizarre dream on the same night. She reads the passage again, her eyes scanning the words frantically. It's all there. The library of mist, the silver eyes, the blinking constellations. This is not a coincidence. This is a confirmation. The dream was not a product of her own mind. It was sent. It was a message delivered to her, and apparently to at least one other person. Why? Why Marietta? She is so different from Thistle. Or was the dream sent to others as well? Is half of Ravenclaw Tower dreaming of silver cats and misty libraries? The thought is both terrifying and oddly comforting. She is not alone in this mystery. But if she is not alone, what does that make her? A participant? A messenger? Or just a pawn in some strange, elaborate game? A floorboard creaks by the entrance, and Thistle jumps back from the desk, her heart leaping into her throat. Marietta has returned, laughing with a friend. Thistle scurries back to her armchair, her face burning, feeling like a common spy. She pretends to be engrossed in her notebook, but her mind is racing. She watches as Marietta picks up her journal, closes it without a second glance at the last page, and tucks it into her bag. The profound secret hidden within its pages, completely lost on her. To Marietta, it was just a strange dream, dismissed and forgotten. But to Thistle, it is everything. She looks down at her own notebook, at her own sketch of the cat. The mystery has deepened exponentially. It's no longer just about her. There is a pattern, a design, a purpose behind these strange events. And for the first time, Thistle feels a genuine shiver of fear. This is bigger than her. This is old magic, powerful magic, and it has, for some unknowable reason, chosen to pull back its veil and show her a glimpse of what lies behind. And she has the terrifying feeling that she has no choice but to follow it, wherever it might lead. Sleep does not come easily to Thistle that night. She lies in her four-poster bed, the curtains drawn tight, but the darkness offers no comfort. Her mind is a whirlwind, replaying the day's impossible events on a loop. The dream, the book, the cat in the glass, the cryptic numbers. Professor Vector's knowing gaze, Marietta's journal. Each memory is a bright, sharp piece of a puzzle she can't assemble. The silence of the dormitory is a stark contrast to the noise in her head. She can hear the soft, even breathing of her roommates, blissfully unaware of the mystery that has taken root in their midst. The riddle is what haunts her the most. What am I beneath the raven skies? A mirror in Ravenclaw Tower, but the cat she saw was not in the tower. It was in a forgotten corridor on the 5th floor. It doesn't add up. Unless she was meant to return. Unless the first encounter was just an introduction, an invitation. The thought sends a shiver through her that is 1 part terror and 2 parts irresistible curiosity. She knows what she has to do. Waiting until the deep, quiet hours of the night, when the castle has settled into its heavy stone slumber. Thistle makes her decision. She slips out of bed, her movements as silent as a shadow. She doesn't bother with a disillusionment charm. She trusts her own quietness, her ability to move through the castle like a whisper. With her wand in one hand and her precious notebook clutched in the other, she creeps from the dormitory. The Ravenclaw common room is dark, save for the dying. Orange embers in the fireplace. The great, arched windows show a clear, star-dusted sky. The fog has long since dissipated, leaving the world sharp and clear. She slips out of the common room, her heart pounding a steady, nervous rhythm, and begins her descent to the 5th floor. The castle at night is a different creature. Every shadow seems to hold a secret. Every creak of the stone seems like a footstep. She imagines Argus Filch and his cat, Mrs. Norris, lurking around every corner, and she flattens herself into alcoves, listening, her senses on high alert. Finally, she reaches the corridor of mirrors. In the darkness, it is an even more unsettling place. The only light comes from the moon, streaming through the tall windows at the far end, casting long, distorted rectangles of pale light on the floor. The mirrors are dark, murky pools, reflecting shadows and secrets. She walks down the corridor, her own reflection, a fragmented ghost, flitting from one dark surface to the next. She finds the mirror, the large, oval one with the tarnished silver frame. It looks inert, empty, just a piece of old, speckled glass. She stands before it, her own pale, nervous face staring back at her. She waits. 1 minute, 2, 5. Nothing happens. the mirror remains just a mirror. The silence of the corridor is absolute, broken only by the distant, soft snoring of a headmaster in a nearby portrait. Disappointment, sharp and cold, begins to settle in her stomach. Had she imagined it all? Was it just a trick of the light, a figment of her overactive, mystery-starved imagination? She thinks of the riddle again. I have no voice, but show you all things. Maybe that's the key. The mirror has no voice, so how can she expect it to speak? She takes a deep breath, her own voice a small, wavering thing in the vast silence. Hello? She whispers to the glass. Her reflection's lips move, but the only sound is her own. Are you there? The cat. I saw you. What do you want? For a long moment, there is only silence. She feels foolish. A young girl talking to a piece of glass in a deserted hallway in the middle of the night. She is about to turn away, to retreat to the safety of her bed, when the surface of the mirror shimmers. It's a subtle change, a brief, liquid ripple, as if a stone has been dropped into a pool of still, dark water. Her reflection wavers, and behind it, in the murky depths of the glass, a shape begins to form. It's the cat. It coalesces out of the darkness, its silver fur seeming to gather the faint moonlight and glow with an internal luminescence. It sits in the exact same spot as before, its tail wrapped neatly around its paws, its silver eyes fixed on her. Relief and terror wash over Thistle in equal measure. She was not mad. It is real. The cat stares at her, its gaze intense, intelligent. It doesn't meow. It doesn't move, except for its eyes. And then it begins to blink. It is not the single, slow blink of before. This is a sequence. Bling, 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 blink, blink, blink. 12 times, slow, deliberate. Each blink a tiny, silent pulse of light in the dark mirror. Thistle fumbles for her notebook, her hands shaking so badly she can barely hold her quill. She scribbles down the number, 12. The cat pauses, its silver eyes unblinking for a long moment. Then it begins again. Blink, 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 blink. 7 times. She scrawls a 7 next to the 12. Another pause. The silence in the corridor is so profound she can hear the frantic scratching of her own quill on the parchment. Then, one final, single, long blink. blink. A 1. She writes it down, her quill nearly tearing the page. 12, 7, 1. The numbers from her arithmancy chart. The numbers that the universe had, according to Professor Vector, asked her. And now, the cat in the mirror was confirming them. This was no coincidence. This was a message, delivered with impossible, undeniable clarity. She looks up from her notebook, her eyes wide with 1,000 new questions. What do they mean? She whispers to the mirror. What am I supposed to do? The cat simply looks at her, its task complete. It gives one last, long, unblinking stare. And in its silver eyes, she sees not just intelligence, but something else. Expectation. It is waiting for her to understand. Then, as slowly as it appeared, it dissolves, its silver form melting back into the murky, speckled darkness of the mirror until it is gone completely. Thistle is left alone once more, staring at her own terrified, exhilarated reflection. She has the numbers. The message has been delivered. Now, she has to figure out what it means. Thistle returns to the Ravenclaw common room in a daze, her mind a spinning vortex of numbers and silver eyes. She doesn't go back to bed. Sleep is an impossible dream now. Instead, she sinks into her favorite armchair by the dying fire and stares at the page in her notebook, the drawing of the cat, the riddle, and now the confirmed sequence of numbers. 12, 7, 1. Her Ravenclaw mind, trained in logic and pattern recognition, kicks into high gear. She ignores the impossible magic of it all, the shared dream, the falling book, the cat in the mirror, and focuses on the data. The numbers are the key. What could they signify? A password? She tries whispering them to the eagle knocker, but it remains stubbornly silent. A library reference? She cross-references the numbers with the Dewey Decimal System used in the library, but it leads her to a dusty section on 19th century Muggle agricultural practices. A date? The 12th of July, maybe, or the 1st of July, 2012? It seems arbitrary, meaningless. She leans her head back, frustrated, and closes her eyes. She pictures the dream, the misty library, the blinking cat, and the stars, the constellations. The cat had shown her stars. Her eyes fly open. Astronomy. Of course, the dream wasn't just a random setting. It was a clue. The cat, the mirror, the numbers, They were all pointing her towards the sky, and there is only one place in Hogwarts to properly see the sky: the Astronomy Tower. The decision, once made, feels terrifyingly right. It's a violation of at least half a dozen school rules to be wandering the castle at this hour, let alone heading to the highest, most exposed tower. The risk of being caught by Filch or a professor is immense, but the risk of ignoring this mystery, of turning her back on the question the universe has asked her, feels infinitely greater. With a newfound resolve, she slips out of the common room for the second time that night. The journey to the Astronomy Tower is long and perilous. She takes the back staircases, her ears straining for any sound, her body pressed into the shadows. The long, spiral staircase that leads to the top of the tower is the worst part. It's a tight, stone corkscrew, and every step she takes seems to echo in the confined space. The air grows colder, thinner, and she can feel the bite of the wind whistling through unseen cracks in the stone. Finally, she reaches the top. She pushes open the heavy wooden door and steps out onto the topmost parapet. The change in atmosphere is breathtaking. She leaves the cramped, enclosed spaces of the castle and steps into the vast, open emptiness of the night. The wind is a living thing up here, a powerful, rushing force that whips at her robes and tears the breath from her lungs. The sky above is a vast, dark, velvet dome, sprinkled with the cold, sharp diamonds of 1,000,000 stars. The moon is a perfect, bright crescent, bathing the castle battlements in a pale, silvery light. The fog is completely gone, and she can see the dark, sleeping shapes of the forbidden forest and the still, inky blackness of the lake far below. She feels impossibly small, a tiny, solitary figure standing on the roof of the world. She walks to the edge of the parapet, her hands gripping the cold, rough stone, and looks up. The familiar constellations are all there, old friends in their proper places. Draco coils near the pole star. Cygnus soars on wings of light. Orion, the great hunter, strides across the southern sky. She thinks of the numbers again. 12, 7, 1. What do they mean here? Under this vast, open sky. She looks at her cheap, muggle-made wristwatch. The hands are nearing the top. It's almost midnight, the 12th hour, as if on cue. The great clock tower of Hogwarts begins to chime. Its deep, resonant bells tolling the arrival of midnight. Bong, bong, bong. On the 12th and final chime, a new light appears in the sky. It's not a shooting star. It's not a planet. It is a cluster of soft, silver lights that bloom into existence in a patch of sky that was empty just a moment before. The light is the same pale, ethereal silver as the cat's eyes. The stars shimmer and pulse, and as she watches, breathless, faint lines of light connect them, tracing the outline of a magnificent celestial cat. Its tail curved, its head held high, its body sprawled across a vast swath of the heavens. It is the constellation from her dream. She stares, utterly mesmerized, her heart pounding with a mixture of awe and terror. She thinks of the numbers. 12, the 12th hour, midnight. 7. She quickly counts the major, brightest stars that form the body of the celestial cat. There are 7 of them. One of the stars, the one that forms the creature's eye, glows brighter than all the others. A single, brilliant point of silver light. It all fits. It all makes sense. She is so lost in the wonder of it that she almost misses the next part. The 7 stars begin to move, slowly, gracefully. They drift from their feline formation. The lines of light that connect them, stretching and reforming. They are rearranging themselves. They are spelling something, not in letters, but in ancient runes. She recognizes the shapes from her textbooks, the sharp, angular lines of the elder Futhark. "My notebook," she gasps, her voice snatched away by the wind. She fumbles in her pocket, her fingers numb with cold. She pulls out the notebook and her self-inking quill. The wind whips at the pages, trying to tear them from her grasp. She flattens the book against the cold stone of the parapet and begins to sketch, her hand moving with a frantic, desperate speed. She draws the runes as they form, her mind working on pure instinct, not even trying to translate them yet, just to capture them before they are gone. She finishes the last rune, a complex symbol of interlocking lines, and looks up. And just as she does, a bank of thick, dark clouds, appearing as if from nowhere on this perfectly clear night, rolls across the sky. They surge forward, swallowing the moon, the stars, and the impossible, magical constellation in a wave of darkness. When the clouds pass, just a moment later, the sky is as it was before. The silver stars, the runes, the celestial cat, they are all gone. The only evidence that they were ever there is the frantic, spidery scrawl on the page of her notebook. Thistle is alone again on the cold, wind-swept tower, under a sky that is once again ordinary. But she is holding the next piece of the puzzle. She has the message, and she knows, with a certainty that both thrills and terrifies her, that her journey into this mystery is far from over. Thistle doesn't remember the journey back down from the astronomy tower. Her mind is a blur of adrenaline and awe, her feet carrying her automatically down the spiral staircase and through the sleeping corridors, her hand clutching her notebook to her chest as if it were a fragile, beating heart. She moves like a sleepwalker. The image of the star runes burned onto the inside of her eyelids. She doesn't stop until she is back in the reassuring, fire-warmed silence of the Ravenclaw common room. She collapses into the same armchair as before, her body trembling with a mixture of cold, exhaustion, and sheer, unadulterated wonder. The room is still and quiet. The fire has burned down to nothing but a pile of pale gray ash. The first, faint hint of dawn is beginning to soften the edges of the night sky visible through the tall windows. She has been out for hours. She spreads the notebook open on her lap. There, on the page, is the frantic, wind-whipped sketch of the runes. They look alien and powerful, a language not meant for parchment and ink. Now comes the real test. Capturing them was instinct. Understanding them will require logic, knowledge, and every ounce of her Ravenclaw intellect. She knows she cannot possibly translate them on her own. While she can recognize a few of the simpler runes from her lessons, Fehu for wealth or power, Algiz for protection. The message in the stars was composed of complex, interwoven symbols, some of which she has never seen before. She needs a book, and she knows exactly which one. For the second time that day, she finds herself drawn to the library. This time, she doesn't sneak. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting long, cool shadows across the castle grounds. She is just another early rising, diligent student. She slips into the library the moment Madame Pince unseals the doors. The great chamber, empty and echoing in the early morning light. She goes straight to the section on ancient runes, her heart pounding a steady, purposeful rhythm. She finds the book she needs, a comprehensive runic lexicon, a massive, heavy tome bound in dragon hide. She hefts it from the shelf, It weighs nearly as much as she does, and carries it to her favorite secluded corral. The work is slow and painstaking. She opens her notebook to the page of scrawled runes and places it beside the lexicon. One by one, she begins the process of decipherment. The first rune is a combination of Gibo, the rune of gifts and partnership, and Ansuz, the rune of divine wisdom and messages. The lexicon suggests that, when combined, they can mean an inspired gift or a message from another realm. A shiver runs down Thistle's spine. She moves to the next symbol, a more complex ligature. She carefully unpicks its constituent parts, cross-referencing them in the lexicon. It's a slow, methodical process, like translating a forgotten language with only a partial dictionary. But as she works, a sentence begins to emerge. Each translated rune adds another word, another piece of the puzzle. And with each word, her excitement grows. This is what she loves, what she is good at, finding the order in the chaos, the meaning in the mystery. After nearly 2 hours, as the library begins to fill with other students and the morning sun streams through the windows, she has it. The final rune clicks into place. She stares at the translated message, written out in her own neat, slightly shaky handwriting beneath her sketch of the star runes. Her breath catches in her throat, and the watcher in the glass waits for the raven's cleverness. The message is both a revelation and another, deeper riddle. The watcher in the glass. It has to be the cat. It is watching her, waiting for her. But waiting for what? For the raven's cleverness. It's a test, a challenge. The cat, the mirror, the stars. They are not just giving her clues. They are testing her ability to understand them, to follow the path they have laid out. The riddle from the library book. What am I beneath the raven's skies? Suddenly clicks into place with a new, profound meaning. The answer isn't just a mirror. It's a specific mirror in Ravenclaw Tower. A mirror that is waiting for a Ravenclaw to be clever enough to solve its puzzle. She looks at the message again. It's not a warning. It's not a threat. It feels like an invitation into a secret that has been waiting. Perhaps for centuries, for someone like her, someone with a notebook full of questions, someone who notices the details others miss, someone who is brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to follow a dream into the dark. She closes the heavy lexicon, her mind clear and calm for the first time since she woke. The fear is still there, a low background hum, but it is overshadowed by a powerful sense of purpose. She knows what she has to do next. She has to find the mirror, the right mirror, the one that the cat, her mysterious, silver-eyed guide, is waiting behind. The final piece of the puzzle is not in a book or in the stars. It's waiting for her in her own common room, hidden in plain sight. The revelation in the library galvanizes Thistle. The mystery is no longer a series of disconnected, strange events. It is a coherent narrative, and she is its protagonist. She spends the rest of the day in a state of heightened awareness, her senses on a knife's edge. Every mirror she passes seems to hold a new significance. Every reflection feels like it might hold a secret. She answers questions in class with a sharp, focused clarity that surprises even her. Her mind buzzing with the thrill of the puzzle she is on the verge of solving. But she waits. She knows that this final step cannot be rushed. It is not something to be investigated in the bright, bustling daylight, with other students around to ask questions. This is a secret for the quiet hours, for the time when the castle sleeps and its deepest magic stirs. That night, after the common room has emptied and the fire has once again burned down to a orange glow, Thistle begins her search. The riddle had been specific. Beneath the raven's skies. That had to mean the common room itself, with its magnificent, star-painted, domed ceiling. She moves through the circular room, her heart pounding a slow, steady drum of anticipation. She examines every reflective surface, the glass in the bookcases, which shows only the distorted spines of ancient books, the polished silver goblets left on a table, which reflect her own face, small and warped, the dark, glossy surface of a wizard's chessboard. Nothing. She is about to give up, to concede that she has missed something vital, when her eyes land on it. It's a mirror she has seen 1,000 times, but never truly looked at. It hangs in a dim, forgotten alcove between two towering bookcases, a small, unassuming oval mirror in a simple, unadorned frame. It's not grand or ancient looking. It's just a mirror. But as she approaches it, she feels a faint, almost imperceptible hum of magic in the air, a low thrum that resonates with the same frequency as the feeling she got in the Department of Mysteries. She stands before it. Her reflection is clear, bathed in the soft, warm light from the dying fire. She looks into her own eyes, and for a moment, she sees the same nervous, curious girl from the start of this impossible journey. She takes a deep breath. She doesn't speak. She doesn't ask a question. She simply remembers the message from the stars. The watcher in the glass waits for the raven's cleverness. It's a test of cleverness, a test of perception. What does a mirror do? It shows you what is. But the riddle said it was filled with lies. What is the greatest lie a mirror can tell? That it is only a reflection, that there is nothing beyond the glass. Thistle raises her hand, not to the mirror, but to her own reflection in the mirror. She doesn't try to touch the cold, hard surface of the glass. Instead, with a leap of faith that goes against every logical instinct she possesses, she focuses her will, her intent, on the idea of reaching through her reflection. As if it were a doorway, she pictures the misty library from her dream. She pictures the silver cat. For a moment, nothing happens. The mirror remains a mirror. Her reflection remains a reflection. And then, the surface of the glass ripples. Her reflection dissolves, not into darkness, but into a swirling, silvery mist. The hum of magic grows stronger, and a cool, gentle breeze, smelling of old paper and moonlight, wafts out from the mirror, caressing her face. The mirror is no longer a mirror. It is a gateway. She stares into the swirling mist, her heart in her throat. She doesn't know what lies beyond it. A hidden room? Another world? The home of the silver cat? The answer is right there, a hand's breadth away. But as she is about to take that final, irrevocable step, a new thought, cold and sharp, pierces through her curiosity. Is she ready? Is she ready for the answer? Some questions, she realizes, are more beautiful, more precious, when they remain questions. She lowers her hand. As she does, the mist in the mirror slowly recedes. The hum of magic fades, and her own reflection solidifies, looking back at her with an expression she doesn't quite recognize, one of quiet, newfound wisdom. She has solved the puzzle. She has proven her cleverness, and she has made a choice. For now, the mystery will remain a mystery. She returns to her bed, her mind finally blessedly quiet. She falls into a deep, dreamless sleep. When she wakes the next morning, it is to a familiar weight at the foot of her bed. She opens her eyes, and her breath catches, curled up on the deep blue velvet of her duvet, bathed in the soft light of a new day, is the cat. It is no longer a reflection, no longer a ghost in the glass. It is real, solid. She can see the individual hairs of its silver fur, the gentle rise and fall of its chest as it breathes. It lifts its head and looks at her, and its silver eyes are filled not with cryptic mystery, but with a look of calm, profound approval. It has crossed over. It has come to visit her, to acknowledge her choice. Thistle doesn't move. She doesn't breathe. She simply stares, memorizing every detail of this impossible, wonderful creature. The cat holds her gaze for a long moment, and then it does something utterly ordinary. It yawns, showing a tiny pink tongue, and then it blinks. A single, slow, final blink. And in that instant, it is gone. It doesn't dissolve or fade. It simply vanishes, leaving behind only the faint indentation on her duvet where it had been lying, and the lingering scent of moonlight and magic. The days that follow are, on the surface, perfectly ordinary. The fog lifts. The castle returns to its usual noisy, bustling self, and Thistle returns to her routine. She attends her classes. She writes her essays. She eats buttered toast for breakfast in the great hall. The frantic, magical whirlwind of the past few days feels like a dream, a half-forgotten story. But something has changed. The world feels different, brighter, filled with a new layer of potential magic that she had never noticed before. Her book of questions, once filled with abstract, impersonal queries, now has a new, central mystery at its heart. The page with the sketch of the cat and the translated runes is her most precious secret, a tangible reminder that the world is far stranger and more wonderful than any textbook could ever explain. She doesn't speak of her experience to anyone. How could she? How could she explain the falling book, the numbers in her homework, the cat in the mirror? They would think she was mad. Even Marietta Edgecombe, the only other person she knows who shared the dream, has clearly forgotten all about it. Her mind occupied with more immediate, less cosmic concerns. The secret belongs to Thistle alone. She is no longer just a student of magic. She is a keeper of it. She has been touched by something ancient and powerful, something that exists in the hidden spaces of the castle, in the corner of a dream, in the reflection of a forgotten mirror. She has been asked a question by the universe, and she has had the wisdom to know that some questions are not meant to be answered, only to be lived with. Sometimes, late at night, when the Ravenclaw common room is quiet, she will walk over to the small, unassuming mirror in the alcove. It always shows her nothing but her own reflection. But every now and then, just for a fraction of a second, she thinks she sees a flicker of movement in its depths, a flash of silver in the corner of her eye. She never knows if it's real or just her imagination, her hopeful memory playing tricks on her. But it's enough. She has her books, her classes, and her endless, wonderful questions. But now, she also has a secret. And sometimes, when she looks in a mirror, she smiles, knowing that the cat is watching and waiting